I couldn't believe it when Karen cut me off, swooping right into my reserved parking spot like she owned the place. I honked, waved, and even gestured for her to move, but she just ignored me and strutted into the building with a smug grin on her face. I've dealt with her kind before, entitled and oblivious, but this was the last straw. Little did she know, this time I had something up my sleeve that would turn the tables completely. Pulling into the lot, I felt hopeful. It was Friday after all. But just as I was about to park in my spot, Karen zoomed in like a bat out of nowhere. Her tires screeched as they hit the curb, perfectly cutting me off. Seriously? I muttered to myself. Why did it have to be her? Again? This wasn't how I planned to start my day. I sat there, totally shocked. My hand moved almost on its own, pressing down on the horn. It blared loud, but it was like she couldn't hear it. Karen kept walking, not even turning her head. I leaned out of the window and tried calling after her. Hey! No response, just her back walking further away while I was stuck there, fuming. Just as I started reversing to find another spot, a guy walking by caught my eye. He glanced at me, then at Karen, and shook his head, giving me a knowing look. Happens all the time, huh? He asked. I shrugged and sighed, deciding to park across the street. It was a longer walk, but I needed the fresh air to cool my frustration. Walking into the building, I couldn't shake off the incident. This wasn't Karen's first act of selfishness when it came to parking, far from it. Each day had a new spot struggle, but today I hit my limit. I clutched my bag tighter and vowed that next time would be different. I wasn't going to let her keep getting away with it. Reaching the building entrance, I could feel the tension rising in me. Inside, Karen was by the elevator, having a good laugh with her cronies. Her carefree attitude and loud chatter only fueled my irritation. Hey, space stealer, I thought, but kept the words to myself. I made my way past her group with a quick nod to a few familiar faces, focusing on what to do next. Her attitude was something else, but I decided not to deal with it in the heat of the moment. I took a deep breath and kept walking, knowing I needed to keep calm. A plan? Yes, I needed a good plan. Karen's arrogance was one thing, but confronting her head-on without a solid approach wasn't the way to go. Well, news about the parking thief spread fast. By the time I reached my floor, whispers filled the halls. Did you hear about Karen's stunt this morning? Someone said, nudging their friend. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, but nobody was surprised. Karen had built quite the reputation around here for her complete disregard of others. While grabbing my supplies, I overheard two maintenance workers talking about the parking thief. It wasn't hard to guess they meant Karen. As I walked in, Pete, my coworker and good friend, overheard and shook his head. You gonna do something about it? He asked, motioning toward the bustling hallway. We'll see how she feels about that, I replied, determined to find a solution. She's got some nerve, Pete exclaimed, patting my shoulder as I joined him in the break room. I grabbed a coffee and laughed. Yeah, tell me about it. We settled into the worn chairs, a group of us gathered around. Karen's disregard for parking spots was the hot topic of the day, and sharing the stories made it a bit easier to bear. The chatter was all about the parking mess. Voices rose in frustration over Karen's antics. Someone's gonna snap, I heard Pete say. The door opened, and there she was. Karen walked in, oblivious to the chaos she had caused, that smug grin never leaving her face. Morning, she chirped, like she hadn't just created the parking equivalent of a train wreck. Keeping my cool, I silently plotted my next step. Karen breezed past, totally ignoring the glares. Isn't she something? Pete whispered, shaking his head. I knew raging wouldn't help, so I just nodded. Yeah, she was something all right. But two can play at this game, I thought. Maybe it was time for a little creativity on my part. As I watched Karen walk away, my mind raced. I needed a concrete plan. Enough was enough. I knew people who might help, but it was time for more than idle chats. I'll handle this, I told Pete, determination building up. Let's see how she feels about that. It was time to take some proper action, no more sitting around. So I decided to go talk to building management about Karen stealing my spot. I found myself outside the office, taking a deep breath for composure. The clock ticked loud in the quiet hall. I was ready to finally put my frustration into words. No more watching from the sidelines. It was time to do something and let management know what's happening. Inside, I laid out the whole parking mess, giving specifics about Karen's repetitive spot thefts. The manager nodded along, a look of familiarity on his face. Karen, you say? He remarked, running a hand through his hair. Apparently, she had been the topic of previous complaints, a troublemaker in more ways than one. I felt a spark of hope that he might actually listen. We talked through some solutions to deal with her antics. Though not making any promises, the manager thanked me for speaking out. "We appreciate your concern," he said, grabbing a notepad. I left with a bit more confidence. Even if immediate results didn't come, at least the ball was rolling. We needed a plan to stop Karen and her parking nightmares. Leaving the office, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe things would change. Just as I turned the corner, Karen walked by. Her eyes met mine, and I swear her grin grew wider. She exuded confidence, like she was winning some game I didn't even know we were playing. I didn't let her faze me, keeping my pace steady as we passed. I held back the urge to confront her on the spot and instead headed home. The afternoon sunlight poured over my notepad as I jot down potential strategies. Confrontation wasn't my plan, at least not yet. I needed smarter moves, ones that wouldn't leave room for retaliation. A few ideas scribbled themselves out, forming the framework of a plan. My phone buzzed, a message about a neighborhood meeting that night. Perfect timing. These meetings were the best way to rally support and maybe find allies against her shenanigans. "Hey, are you going?" Pete texted. "Definitely," I replied, eager. Karen could ignore one person, but a group? That was a different story. I needed voices, and I planned to gather them tonight. That afternoon, I found myself at the neighborhood meeting. The room hummed with chatter, everyone sharing their latest grievance. "Karen's parking again?" Someone snorted, amusement mingled with frustration. As I took a seat, it felt like I was among a supportive crowd. Tonight might just be the chance to put Karen's ridiculous parking habits in the spotlight and start fixing things. I stood up, brushing imaginary crumbs off my jeans, and cleared my throat. "Hey everyone, can we talk about the parking chaos?" I started. Eyes turned to me, and I saw several heads nodding in agreement. It was clear I wasn't the only one frustrated by the situation. "We need to work out a solution, not just for us, but for everyone in the building," I added, my voice steady with determination. The room buzzed with noise as folks jumped in to share their own parking stories. "Oh, Karen parked over the lines like 3 times last week," Lisa chimed in. Others echoed my experiences with their tales of frustration. "Yeah, she's always stealing spots, then acts like nothing happened," Tom added with a shake of his head. It felt good knowing I wasn't the only one fed up with Karen's antics. The meeting leader, Mr. Howard, raised a hand to calm the room. "Okay, folks, how about we form a parking committee?" he suggested. "Great idea," I said, volunteering almost immediately. "Count me in." I wanted to be part of something that could actually bring change. Joining the committee seemed like the perfect opportunity to tackle the mess our parking situation had become and give me a sense of control over it. As the meeting wrapped up, several neighbors approached me, their voices full of encouragement. "You've got our backing, go get it," George said, patting my back. Others nodded, offering their support with thumbs up and approving looks. It was uplifting, realizing the community was behind me. Their enthusiasm fueled my resolve, and I walked away from the meeting with a renewed sense that we could solve the parking dilemma together. I walked out of the conference room, my stride a little more confident. With allies on my side, I felt empowered, like we were rallying for a shared cause. The parking chaos needed a resolution, and with a committee forming, I finally believed we could make it happen. As I chatted with neighbors while leaving, I knew I wasn't alone. Together, we'd fix the mess and confront Karen's antics. Our newly formed parking committee gathered for the first time in the building's common room. We pulled together some chairs and settled in. "All right, what's our game plan, folks?" I asked, eyeing the eager faces around me. We needed strategies to make parking fair for everyone. Ideas flew around, and enthusiasm filled the air. There was a shared sense of purpose, and we all knew what was at stake. "I think we're all on the same page," I noted during our discussion. "How about posting clear parking rules?" I suggested. Heads nodded, and the committee agreed to draft a proposal. Clear signs would inform everyone of their responsibilities. We aimed to present the plan to the management soon. Finally, concrete steps were taking shape, and I felt a sense of accomplishment knowing we were on the right path. Meanwhile, Karen carried on with her usual disregard for the rules. Despite the informal complaints piling up, she didn't seem to care. Her arrogant smirk whenever someone mentioned the parking chaos only fueled our collective determination. She thinks she's untouchable, Lisa commented during our committee meeting. Her careless attitude was the motivation we needed to stay focused and committed to putting an end to her shenanigans. In the midst of our planning session, Pete leaned forward with an idea. "Why don't we put her behavior spotlight at the next board meeting?" he suggested with a glint of mischief. The thought of highlighting Karen's antics publicly stirred some excitement. Everyone around the table agreed it could shake things up. "Might be just the pressure she needs," George added, and we all nodded in agreement. We decided to bring Pete's idea to life, convinced that public exposure could make Karen rethink her actions. With our new strategy, the days passed and Karen remained the topic everyone discussed. She didn't grasp the frustration she caused, which only strengthened our resolve. Determined more than ever, we kept at it, eager to see how this new approach might finally get through to her. Our push for change was definitely gaining traction. More and more residents started speaking up, sharing their own parking horror stories. John from the second floor said, "It's about time we did something." Sue nodded. "We're stronger together." With every story shared, the atmosphere was charged with hope. We could sense change was on the horizon, and it pushed us closer to reaching our goal, changing how parking worked for all of us. I had a chance encounter with Phil, the security guard, who was taking his break. Casually sipping his coffee, he mentioned seeing Karen making some questionable parking maneuvers. "She did it again this morning," he noted. When I asked if he could do anything, he shrugged. "Without evidence, my hands are tied," he explained. I understood his position, but felt the gears turning in my head. Evidence. Darn, I needed evidence. Sitting at my desk, I couldn't shake the thought of how I could catch Karen in the act. She was blissfully unaware of our plotting. "Maybe there's another way," I muttered, doodling on a notepad. Ideas bounced around my head, but none seemed foolproof. Meanwhile, Karen continued her routine, smiling and waving as if she didn't have a care in the world. It was frustrating, but I was determined. While discussing in the break room, George suddenly said, "Why not use technology to catch her?" His words sparked a light bulb moment for me. "You mean like a camera?" I asked, thinking about possibilities. "Exactly," George replied. Inspired by his suggestion, I started thinking about ways to discreetly record Karen's antics. Perhaps this was the break I needed, and George's idea might just be what we were looking for. Deciding on a dash cam, I set it up in my car one quiet evening. The plan was simple: capture Karen taking my spot, time and time again. "This is gonna work," I muttered while adjusting the device. My heart was set on catching her in the act, documenting her behavior for all to see. With everything in place, I sat back and waited, feeling confident about this new approach. Karen strutted into the lot the next day, her car weaving through spaces like she owned them. Her complete disregard for parking etiquette was just baffling. Meanwhile, the community's disdain was growing. All the talks had made it difficult for anyone to ignore. "She's just asking for trouble," Jane commented as we watched from a distance. It was only a matter of time before her attitude caught up with her. With the dash cam finally in place, I felt a sense of excitement mixed with anticipation. Knowing it was active and ready, I couldn't help but grin. "I'm watching you, Karen," I muttered to myself. The real proof was just a car park away. It seemed like only a matter of time before I'd have all the evidence needed to deal with her infamous parking habits once and for all. It didn't take long for the dash cam to do its job. Reviewing the footage over the weekend, there it was, Karen sliding into my space as if it were just hers for the taking. The recording was clear, leaving no room for doubt. "Gotcha," I whispered with a mischievous grin. The footage captured every detail, shining a spotlight on her blatant disregard for the rules that had frustrated us all. Armed with footage, I gathered the committee for a special viewing session. "You guys won't believe this," I announced, playing the clip. Gasps and murmurs spread around the room. Pete chuckled. "Caught red-handed, huh?" The evidence was undeniable, and Karen's actions were laid bare for everyone to see. With our doubts erased, we could finally move forward, knowing we held the key to solving our parking predicament. The proof had given us a renewed sense of purpose. We weren't just fed-up neighbors anymore. We were a team on a mission. Pete leaned forward, excitement in his voice. "Let's show this at the next meeting." I agreed wholeheartedly. With new determination coursing through our group, we were ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. Karen's reign over the parking lot was finally coming to an end. Gathered in the community room, there was a buzz in the air. "We're all set, right?" Pete asked, looking around at the assembled group. Everyone nodded, ready to confront Karen's parking antics. The plan was simple: share the damning dash cam footage with management. "Can't wait to see her face," Lisa added with a sly grin. Our determination was sky high, fueled by the possibility of finally fixing the parking chaos. The room was alive with chatter as our group laid the groundwork for the showdown. "Let's make sure the footage is good to go," George said, checking the tech setup. We all gathered around, reviewing the footage again, its clarity undeniable. "This is our ace," I whispered, my heart racing. The video was our ticket to a fair solution, setting the scene for a confrontation like none before. Karen, oblivious as ever, continued her routine, parking where she pleased with a smug smile. "She doesn't have a clue," I said, watching her from the building entrance. As if sensing our plans, our team moved forward, knowing that with evidence on our side, victory was near. Every day her careless actions only strengthened our resolve, pushing us closer to the moment of truth we eagerly awaited. The day had finally come, and you could feel it in the building's halls. Tension was thick as we filed into the meeting room, the dash cam footage ready for its debut. "This is it," I murmured, feeling the weight of anticipation in the air. Around us, fellow residents settled into seats, each one keen to see the consequences of Karen's disregard laid bare before the management. As Karen strolled into the meeting, her confidence was palpable. She seemed completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. Our group was ready, and when it came time, we presented the dash cam footage. The room grew quiet as Karen's actions played out on screen. My heart pounded, knowing there was no turning back. The time for excuses was over. Her behavior was out in the open for all to see. Watching the response, I noticed residents whispering, nodding in agreement. A few shot disapproving looks Karen's way. "This is unreal," she scoffed, but I caught a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Her usual cockiness seemed to take a back seat as the accusation became undeniable. The community's support bolstered our stance, making it clear we weren't backing down anytime soon. It was a small victory for us already. "Let's review this," one manager said as they gathered around the screen. Their focus on the footage was intense, and I could see the realization dawn across their faces. "We've seen enough," the head manager concluded, meeting our gaze. "We'll address this immediately." Their assurance painted a hopeful picture. We had finally gotten through where words alone hadn't, and relief washed over me at the promise of action. Leaving the meeting room was like entering a different world. Conversations buzzed around us, excitement, disbelief, relief. "We did it, didn't we?" Sue said, grinning wide. Our group was inundated with pats on the back, nods of approval, and whispered thanks. "Feels great to finally be heard," George said, echoing my thoughts exactly. The community spirit was infectious, leaving us all eager for what lay next for our shared space. Days passed, and Karen seemed to walk a tad slower, the spring in her step noticeably dimmed. "Guess someone's missing their spotlight," a neighbor remarked, a hint of satisfaction in their voice. Our efforts to bring change were finally taking effect. The dominating sense was one of justice, something our community had earned through persistence and shared determination. Change was well underway, and Karen's reign was slipping away with each passing day. Management took swift action, rolling out new parking protocols to curb rule breakers. "Finally, some order," Pete said, holding up a memo that outlined the new guidelines. All residents received them, emphasizing the importance of compliance. It felt like a fresh start. "Here's to a chaos-free lot," Lisa chimed, raising an imaginary glass. The mood was light, our goal of a fair parking system now a reality. We had won. The lot looked different now. Warning signs were posted right where Karen loved to park, each one a reminder of rules she couldn't just ignore. Her face twisted in a mix of confusion and frustration as she drove in. "What's happened here?" I overheard her mutter. The swiftness of change must have startled her. Slowly she realized her hold over the parking lot was slipping away. I watched from a distance as Karen wandered the lot, her usual confidence noticeably missing. She hesitated at every open space, unsure of where to park next. Around her, curious eyes from other residents tracked her every move. It was as if the whole community was silently waiting to see if she'd slip up again. Her dilemma was clear. This was not her playground anymore. Karen now kept more to herself, no longer as outspoken or confrontational as before. Her days of public parking battles seemed over, at least for now. People still talked, but she stayed away from the gossip, choosing quieter paths. Meanwhile, our committee stayed alert, committed to fairness. We weren't about to let our progress slip, always ready to spring to action if needed. Our triumph seemed to inspire others in the building. Neighbors started talking about tackling other issues too, the broken elevator, the noisy pipes. If we can fix parking, we can fix anything, Pete joked, and it felt true. A sort of collective energy was building, and the air buzzed with the idea of changing things for the better. Slowly, respect and harmony took root. With Karen's influence waning, new dynamics emerged in the community. People were more open, friendlier. "Quite the turnaround, huh?" Sue said during a chat by the mailboxes. Vigilance became our new normal, a shield against old challenges and any new ones. The shared experience had bonded us, and the parking saga was behind us. We stood ready for anything the future might bring. I finally decided the timing was right to reveal our trump card, the dash cam footage. Gathering my committee buddies, I suggested we show it to management. The collective nodding was immediate. "This will seal it," George confirmed. We knew the evidence was powerful, something management couldn't ignore. With our proof in hand, we felt ready to approach the higher-ups and ensure Karen faced the consequences. We gathered for another community meeting, tension bubbling beneath the surface. As the footage rolled, Karen's jaw dropped. "Is this a joke?" she blurted, more stunned than angry. The room held its breath, eyes flicking between the screen and Karen's face. This was no prank, it was her reality. Her surprise turned into a deep-seated embarrassment as whispers spread among the residents, sealing her fate. With the evidence in their hands, management wasted no time crafting new parking rules. "Justice at last!" Pete exclaimed, reading through the new guidelines pinned for all to see. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief. Voices echoed gratitude during the meeting, residents feeling justified and acknowledged. Finally, chaos was replaced with order, and everyone seemed content with the new, fair arrangements. The dashcam footage marked the end of Karen's unchecked parking reign. Her previous attitude began attracting scorn rather than acceptance, the community's patience fully worn out. "No more special treatment," I heard someone say, and it echoed through our hearts. Karen had ruled the lot with entitlement, but now she faced only disapproval from those around her. The shift in perception was palpable. As understanding dawned on her, Karen's defiance faded. Her once confident demeanor now showed signs of begrudging acceptance. The dashcam footage had heralded the change, bringing an end to the turmoil she'd stirred. "Looks like peace is back," George said over coffee. Order could finally settle in, and Karen's reign was reduced to a mere memory. Together, we'd found closure and a more harmonious community. Our committee's actions led to a big change in our building. Everyone started following the new parking rules, and things became peaceful again. Pete said, "No more rule breakers here," with a proud smile. That was a win for all of us. Lisa added, "Finally some peace." And I couldn't agree more. We were all glad to see that our hard work paid off, and the community felt united once again. After everything settled down, life in the community was back to its easygoing rhythm. No more drama with Karen over parking spots. "Good to see her behaving," remarked Sue during our afternoon walks. Everyday activities felt smoother, and the spirit around here was brighter. Change was like a breath of fresh air, and everyone appreciated it. Karen's antics were now just old stories, fading into the background. Even Karen adjusted, following the new parking rules without a fuss. We noticed her quietly following the guidelines, like everyone else. "Guess she finally got it," Tom said, with a satisfied nod. People in the building seemed to recognize her shift in behavior. Respect for the new order was evident, and it felt good to see everyone, including Karen, playing by the same rules. The new rules not only brought order, but also emphasized fairness. Karen's transformation underlined how strong we were as a community. "Look what we achieved," Pete proudly stated at the next meeting. The system worked smoothly, and each person's cooperation made our space better. Knowing we had come together for the right cause was rewarding. The parking lot was no longer a battleground, but a shared and respected area. Our committee celebrated a genuine victory with smiles and high fives. We saw that bringing change was possible when everyone worked together. "Who'd have thought?" Lisa giggled, happy with how things turned out. The building felt friendlier, and the air was lighter. It was more than just about parking now. It was about the harmony we brought back. Together, we made our living space better for every single one of us. We all took something valuable from this journey. Facing injustice taught us the importance of standing together. Karen's story will stick with us, I reflected during our talks. George nodded. We'll always remember this as a community win. Her arrogance became a distant memory, slowly fading away. This experience, though tough, left a mark, a lesson that unity can overcome challenges, and fairness is worth fighting for. The experience strengthened our bonds, guiding us in future decisions. We're better for it, said Sandy with a smile, as we discussed fresh projects. Our saga with the parking spot ended, but it left behind strong ties among us. Neighbors now chatted more, planning new areas to improve. The unity experienced through our challenges assured us we could face whatever came next, equipped with camaraderie and perseverance. Karen had noticeably changed, becoming more considerate within our community. Guess I was wrong, she admitted openly during the latest meeting, which surprised us all. Her acknowledgement of past mistakes showed growth. We watched as she made an effort to be a better neighbor, and it was appreciated. The experience had not only shifted how we looked at parking, but also transformed Karen's role in our community. Our parking lot had transformed entirely. It's like a different place, remarked Pete, enjoying the newfound peace as we walked through it. Gone was the chaos Karen once caused. It was now harmonious and orderly. Parking had become straightforward for everyone, and the little worry about spots was a past issue. We continued mingling without old frustrations hanging over us, making coexistence pleasant and enjoyable again. Our community emerged stronger, a testament to the power of collective action. We did it, Lisa cheered during our announcement. This wasn't just a triumph for us, it was for fairness and respect, too. We had faced a challenge and come out resilient. With fresh appreciation for our unity, we prepared for what lay ahead, equipped with lessons of persistence and the wisdom from our united journey.
Do you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.